I'm going to read 2 pages of Sur in English, a free newspaper for southern Spain. The date is from the 25th to the 31st of March 2016. The website is www.surinenglish.com. It's page 14 and also 15. It's news on climate change. And the interesting thing is that it connects climate change to tourism. So if you listen to these newspaper articles I'm going to read, you can take notes on useful ideas and useful language for monologues on climate change, on tourism, or connecting both the impact of climate change on tourism. There's a longer piece. It's got a box with 4 different headings to present the basic information as a summary, and then it's got a smaller article. Climate change is affecting the lives of people in Malaga province. The warm weather and lack of rain increase respiratory allergies, make crops ripen earlier, and affect harvests, but also attract more tourists to the region. And it was written by Agustín Peláez. His email is apelaez@diariosur.es. The boxes say, health. There are more respiratory allergies. For the past 3 years, more people than ever before have consulted doctors and specialists about allergies. Some have never been affected before, others are suffering worse symptoms. 25% of people in Malaga province, in other words, 1 in every 4, suffers from some type of respiratory allergy as a result of climate change. Agriculture. Citrus fruits, mangoes and avocados ripening earlier. This has been caused by the higher temperatures, something which worries farmers who are afraid that the cold could affect the quality of the fruit. 39.3% is the fall in the production of lemons, which is big business in the Guadalhorce Valley. The harvest of avocados has also fallen by 20%. Business. Clothing and household linen affected most. The sale of winter clothing and accessories has been affected because the cold is yet to arrive. The same is happening with blankets and quilts. 100%. From 2014 to 2015, the sales of air conditioning units have doubled, and the rise has continued in the winter months, while sales of heaters have fallen 60%. Tourism. More tourists expected because of the good weather. The high temperatures experienced recently are favoring short breaks and last-minute bookings by people seeking a quick dose of sea and sunshine during the winter months. 8% is the fall in electricity consumption experienced in Malaga in December. In January, the figure was at 2%. Okay, so now for the article. 5 years ago, the Urban Environment Observatory, OMAU, at Malaga City Hall, issued a report about climate change in which it warned that Calle Larios, the Thyssen Museum, the Arraijanal area, and Pedregalejo will be underwater in 100 years if carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere remain at the same levels as at present. This is due to rising temperatures and the thawing of polar ice caps and glaciers, which will result in a rise in the sea level. Looking at this scenario a century beforehand, some people will believe it and others won't. But the reality is that for several years now, the winter temperatures in Malaga province have been abnormally high and there has been little rainfall. both factors which experts associate with climate change. On the 22nd of October 2014, Malaga registered a maximum high of 36.3 degrees Celsius. The previous record was on the 11th of October 1952, when it reached 36 degrees Celsius. Last year, 2015, has gone down in history as one of the warmest and the second driest year of the 21st century so far. That has meant that bars with outside terraces are still enjoying good business, because for visitors it seems that summer never ends, and hotel occupancy rates are up because the attraction of sunshine and beaches is stronger than ever. On the contrary, however, clothes shops have been finding it difficult to sell their winter collections for several years now. Shops selling soft furnishings have seen sales of blankets and quilts plummet, and electrical stores have experienced a 60% drop in sales of heaters. In the agricultural sector, some crops have come into flower not just a week or two early, but nearly 3 months ahead of normal. Strawberries were on sale in the markets before Christmas, and that is very unusual. These are just a few of the many effects this crazy weather is causing in Malaga. Although since November temperatures have occasionally dropped, there has been no really cold weather. In fact, most people have rarely felt the need to wear a jacket and have not needed to dig scarves or gloves out of their wardrobes, not to mention umbrellas. Since the hydrological year began in October, the number of rainy days can practically be counted on one hand. Last Thursday was World Meteorological Day, and all the experts were warning of the palpable effects of climate change. Health. For a number of years, more and more people have been consulting doctors about allergies, especially respiratory allergies, which have increased by an incredible amount. Nowadays, 1 in every 4 people in Malaga are affected, says the coordinator of the Alergo Malaga group, Gonzalo Campos. It isn't just that more people are suffering from allergies. They are increasing because of prolonged dry weather and high temperatures. Autumn is lasting for 6 months nowadays, so we're not getting a winter season. Autumn just goes on until the summer, says this specialist. In Malaga, the most serious allergies are those caused by dust mites. These mites proliferate in high temperatures and a high degree of environmental humidity, conditions which are present on the Costa del Sol. To make matters worse, the present climatic situation makes the periods of allergies last longer, and they are more intensive and virulent, says Campos. The second major cause of respiratory allergies in the province is pollen. Firstly, olive pollen and then grass pollen, especially Parietaria and sticky pollen, of which there is a great deal in the Guadalhorce Valley and La Charquilla, and which remains in the air because of the lack of rain. Gonzalo explains that doctors are seeing a large number of new cases, as well as people who are suffering more than usual with symptoms such as rhinitis, and who may well end up in the emergency department with serious asthma. This has become more common in recent years. Quote, in 2015, there were record numbers of consultations of this type. We were rushed off our feet. Because it didn't rain much in the spring, the pollen was released in large quantities and remained suspended in the air, so it affected a great many people, he says. End of quote. There have been some very rigorous studies into this phenomenon, which show that by 2030, nearly 50% of the population in Europe could be affected by some type of respiratory allergy as a result of climate change. Agriculture. The agricultural sector has not escaped the effects either. Although the Asaja Association does not like to comment on climate change, referring instead to a circumstantial situation produced by present climate conditions, it agrees that abnormally high temperatures in November and December have resulted in plants behaving as if spring had arrived. Crops such as mango, avocado, olives, citrus fruits, and even almonds, important elements of Malaga agriculture, have blossomed several months early in some areas. We believe this is an unusual situation, and we fear that it is going to cause problems. Farmers are worried, says the president of Asaja in Malaga, Baldomero Bellido. The problem, according to Iñaki Ormaza, a researcher with the CSIC and a scientist at La Mayora, is that cold weather and frost in March could affect the ripening of the fruit. If temperatures continue to rise and the minimum temperatures are also higher, we will have to look for varieties which need warmer conditions in winter. But first of all, we need to see whether this is a continuing trend, he says. The heat waves last summer reduced production of citrus fruits, avocados, olives, cereals, and many other crops. They resulted in a diversification of quality and caused some prices to rise and others to drop. This year, vegetables grown in greenhouses, such as tomatoes and cucumbers, have been produced much more rapidly. It's as if we have been in spring all this time. We have had to use a lot of water. Whereas we used to water every 2 days, we're having to do so every day now. Production has increased, so prices have fallen. Now they are getting a bit better because the produce from Almeria is coming to an end, says Jesus Ariza, a farmer from La Charquilla. According to ecologist Marta Monserrat, head researcher for the CSIC at La Mayora Institute of Subtropical and Mediterranean Horticulture, when temperatures rise and relative humidity drops, the population of natural enemies of pests, which spontaneously colonize the crops, drops drastically, and as a result, there are more pests. In order to find a fast and biological form of pest control for the different crops, Marta has just succeeded in obtaining a €230,000 grant from the National Research Plan for a new project to identify natural predators which have adapted to the changing climate. In other words, ones which can cope with high temperatures and low relative humidity. Commerce. Malaga commerce has also been affected by climate change. The president of the Malaga Federation of Commerce, FECOMA, Enrique Gil, says clothes shops have been finding it difficult to sell winter clothing for years. It's because the weather is so good. For 5 years now, we have hardly ever needed to wear coats in November. It is affecting shops on the coast and inland. It is even the same in Ronda, he explains. The president of the Association of City Center Businesses, Maria Jose Valenzuela, agrees. Because the weather isn't cold, by the time shops start their January sales, they have sold hardly any winter clothes, she says. The same goes for shops which sell soft furnishings. Blankets and quilts are hardly selling at all. When items don't sell, the shops make less money, Maria Jose points out. According to the president of FECOMA, sales of heaters from electrical stores have dropped by about 60%. but air conditioning units are flying off the shelves. The high temperatures mean that people are using air conditioning for 8 or 9 months of the year, he says. Between 2014 and 2015, sales of air conditioning systems doubled. Even now in March, we are still installing air conditioning in homes, agrees Daniel Gomez, the manager of Servitec Climatización. The Endesa electricity company has some interesting information. It says Málaga is the only province in Andalusia in which energy consumption dropped in December and January compared with the same months 1 year earlier. In December, it dropped by 8%, and in January, it was 2% lower than a year previously. Endesa attributes this reduction in demand for electricity to the mild temperatures, as people have not needed to heat their homes as much as normal. Tourism. The warm winter weather is proving positive for bars with terraces, but not so good for cozy places where people usually go to escape from the cold weather outside. Nevertheless, the spokesman for the Málaga Hostelry Association, MAOS, José Simón, says the mild weather is attracting more people in general. The summer season hasn't really come to an end, especially for businesses in Pedralejo, Baños del Carmen, and El Palo. Their terraces are still very popular, he says. However, other establishments which have no terrace, such as many in the city center, are losing business as a result, he warns. For the president of the AECOS Association on the Costa del Sol, José Carlos Escribano, the sunshine and beaches are major attractions in Málaga, so this weather is proving very positive for the hotel sector. Quote, the figures are good, not only for the present season, but also for the forthcoming one. The better the weather, the more people come, and this winter has been even better than last year. People are making the most of it and taking short breaks, he explains. End of quote. Spring-like weather in winter has its pros and cons. The lack of rain affects agriculture and prices of produce, but it also multiplies income from tourism as visitors from Europe come in search of sunshine. As they say, it's an ill wind that blows nobody good. And the shorter article, the average temperature in Málaga has risen by half a degree in 10 years. Scientists say that some types of plant are now growing in higher areas to escape the heat. A Peláez, Málaga. It is an unarguable fact that temperatures have risen. The director of the State Meteorological Agency in Málaga, José María Sánchez Laúle, says the temperature in Málaga province has gone up by 0.5 degrees in the past decade. Quote, that is a big jump, and it can only be explained by climate change. Nobody could think it is just coincidental. End of quote, he says. He also points out that global average temperatures have hit record highs in the past 2 years, and it looks as if 2016 will also be a record year, without a doubt. Although the amount of rain which has fallen this winter has been more or less similar to recent years, since the start of the hydrological year, the 1st of October 2015, only 158.4 liters per square meter have fallen in Málaga, which is less than half the average for the period 1981 to 2010, when 372.6 liters fell per square meter over the same length of time. From a marine point of view on the Málaga coast, according to Manuel Vargas, a researcher in the Spanish Oceanography Institute in Fuengirola, who works in the climate change group, there has been a rise in the temperature of the sea surface and in deep waters, more than 600 meters, as well as an increase in salinity. He recalls that on the 13th of August last year, the sea surface in Fuengirola reached a record temperature of 26.3 degrees Celsius. He says there are also variations in the temperature of the sea surface of between 0.001 and 0.003 degrees a year, which would mean that in a century it would rise by between 1 and 2 degrees. In the deep waters, the temperature has increased by 1,000th. Enrique Salvo, a professor of botany at Malaga University, says climate change is more noticeable on the coast than inland, and that the increase in temperatures is affecting the physiology of humans and plants. As an example, he points out that plants such as fan palms, which have the same requirements as the human species, are growing at higher altitudes now because of the heat. Enrique believes the Costa del Sol is on the way to having a climate which is similar to the Tunisian or Algerian coast. He also points out another effect, which is the presence of colonies of jellyfish off our shores, and warns that there will be more toxic red waves and brown tides formed by seaweed, something which is already having a negative effect on tourism in other places. This expert also agrees with other scientists that the rainfall these days tends to be heading more north, and that we can expect more extreme weather events and longer lasting droughts in the future.